Hello noble ones and welcome to Metrodon's Academy. Today I have something to say to Paul from Lang Focus. Now, as you know, I've already made a video about Lang Focus and I have very much respect for both Paul, the content creator, because of his precision and how thorough he is on his videos, the excellent and high quality information that he provides, and also because of all the different topics that he approaches. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a sucker for languages. But precisely because of his precision, there is one thing that he has said multiple times on his videos, particularly the ones dedicated or related to Romance languages, that bothers me a bit. In fact, Paul, if you're watching this, I extend my salutation. Let's have a little interesting discussion here. The item of discussion today is this.
Like all Romance languages, French and Portuguese both developed from varieties of Vulgar Latin, the colloquial varieties of Latin spoken in various areas of the Roman Empire.
The word Romanian contains the word Roman in it. Why? Because it developed from the language of the Romans, Latin. To clarify, Romanian is a member of the Romance language family.
Vulgar Latin, Vulgar Latin, Vulgar Latin, Vulgar Latin.
Modern languages, Romance languages, come from Vulgar Latin. And the reason why I have a problem with this is because I don't really believe there was any such thing as Vulgar Latin. To expand a little bit further, and of course if you want more details, please check out the link in the description below to a splendid dedicated video created at Polymathy channel by Luca Ranieri. But in general, when people say French, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish all derive from Vulgar Latin, they're trying to identify a sort of language, perhaps we could say sub-language, that was allegedly spoken by the people during the Roman period, as opposed to Classical Latin, which was a highly formal language that was only spoken by the elites and only in very specific situations, and perhaps, in fact, it was only written and never spoken. The myth being there was an actual diglossia between the upper class, speaking Classical Latin, and the lower class, speaking Vulgar Latin. In fact, if there ever was any form of diglossia between the educated elites and the people, it would have been the fact that the educated elite would have spoken Classical Latin and Greek, whereas the common people would just speak Classical Latin. In fact, I would even remove classical from that and just say people spoke Latin. The overall idea, I believe, that sort of fueled this misunderstanding is the fact that we oftentimes, once again, imagine a language like Latin, which is of course a dead language, more on that later though, because people misunderstand what that means, but yes, it's an ancient language. The people, they didn't speak that language, but the reality is that yes, of course they did. You see, whether we'd be talking about the highest possible, most beautiful forms of poetic, linguistic power and lexical beauty expressed by the best classical Latin authors, so the higher possible registers, to public speeches given by emperors, generals and consuls, to a mid-register that we could imagine most people use in a sort of everyday but also slightly polite kind of scenario, a register that we absolutely still find in literature, for example Petronius, all the way down to the lowest possible register spoken by the least educated among the masses. It's still all Latin. Look at it this way. Just like in any modern language, Latin had different registers, but they weren't different or separate languages. Even in English, I could tell you the following two sentences. Did you like the food? Was the food to your satisfaction? No human being in his right mind would say that the latter is a different language from the former. And even if you were to elaborate a new language in 1,000 years from now, you wouldn't say that that language comes from the sentence, did you like the food, which was vulgar English, and not from was the food to your satisfaction, which came from classical English, which was a language that nobody spoke. Go to a university, the register is going to be much higher. Listen to scientists, the language is going to be different. Speak to a fishmonger, the language is going to be different. But they are all English. I mean, we still call it English even when we have an Australian, an American, an English, a Scottish, an Irish. I mean, all of these varieties with all the difference in lexicon, in grammar, spelling, pronunciation, and then they're all English. From a bigger scale all the way to a smaller sphere when we go to the city of London, and then you have someone extremely posh and has been brushed by the Queen, someone who speaks RP for I don't know, the news. Then you have someone speaking estuary all the way down to a Cockney. It's still all English. And yet, for Latin, oh no, that's Vulgar Latin. It's a different register of the same language. That is what I'm arguing here today. So, I think it would be much more accurate, in order to avoid presenting something that is clearly a myth, to just say French, Portuguese, Italian, Romanian, Spanish, they all derive from Latin, not from Vulgar Latin. But then again, this is just my take on it. I would very much love to hear your opinions first, dear noble ones, what you think about this, and also, if possible, maybe, if Paul sees this, feel free to let me know with a comment. Thank you so much for watching and supporting Metatron's Academy.